School, scholars and staff have truly embraced the close reading process. Follow along for our first year journey with close reading. We began our journey with close reading by understanding what a complex text looks like, as well as how scholars can interact with a complex text to perform a close read. We decided as a school to use a set of annotations, as well as encourage scholars to come up with their own. Here, you will see our school-wide annotations along with a thinking map that was created by staff during a complex text analysis professional development. Faculty and staff conducted a close reading self-inventory so administration and coaches could tailor professional development opportunities to specific areas of growth. We gathered the school-wide data to share and to help us make instructional decisions. In January, we participated in a ghost visit where all instructional staff toured classrooms where close reading examples were displayed. Teachers were able to see ideas from colleagues as well as display their student work and ideas. Teachers were so excited to visit different classrooms, took so many photos. In order to open up our practice at LGE, we created a pineapple board. As teachers reflect on their own practices and identify their own strengths and areas of growth with close reading, they can reach out to others to observe or be observed. Teachers set up their own time to meet, and coaches covered classrooms as the observing teacher watched his or her peer conduct a lesson. Many teachers have utilized the pineapple board to share their strengths and observer areas of growth from their colleagues. Lake George worked with North Lake Park Elementary School to conduct an external guide visit. We used the feedback to continue to grow our skills and strategies with close reading. We have seen tremendous growth with our scholars. They enjoy using their annotations and participating in close reading lessons in all subject areas. Hey Evan, can you tell me what you did here? Very neat. And can you tell me what this is, what you drew right here?
That's the long neck that they have.
So you drew a picture of the long neck the giraffe has? What about these stars? What do they mean? Very cool. And what about this word right here? You circled this word. Do you know what that word is?
Savannah, because they live in Savannah.
So you circled it because it was what?
They live in Savannah.
Yeah, a cool fact, right? Can you draw your whole street? Can I hold it up for him? And what was this whole close read about? What did you learn about? Facts about what?
That's about giraffes.
Yeah, very neat. Anything else you want to tell me about this? No? Alright, thanks, Evan.
And we actually got to interview a VPK scholar, which was Evan, and then we did a group of second grade scholars and a fourth grade scholar. And I think that was one of the things that all the other schools really enjoyed the most, was seeing authentic conversation about close reads from a student's point of view. So like with Evan, I didn't guide him at all. I just said, okay, come with me, I'm gonna interview you. And Rachel gave me the piece of paper and off we went. So all of that you see in there is completely Evan's ideas on close reading, and that was one of the things that the other schools shared with us, how much they enjoyed was seeing close reading from a scholar's perspective. So today, there are agendas inside this bucket. So thank you, Ms. Thomas, for putting together all of these buckets. In there, each one of you will have an agenda, the close reading article that we're going to go through, and then a note taker. So if you want to take a minute to pass those out or get those for everyone. And as you can see, our time is very limited. I promised Mrs. Swain that I would end right on time so that we could celebrate with energy buses. So the first thing that we're going to do is experience a close read together. We're going to do that to remind ourselves of the close reading process. So if you could, can I borrow your Teresa? If you could turn to this side of your worksheet, it says experience the close read note taker. This is your note taker that you can take notes on, and this is what we're going to start with. So everybody should be looking at this side right here. And one of the things we wanted to do as we reviewed the close reading process was discuss ideas that you could implement right away in the classroom. So one of the first things that the DPLC team took away from this meeting was that a close read does not have to be an article. And we know that in art and in music, it can be a piece of art, it could be a piece of music, it could be a song. But the DPLC team started by watching a video as a close read. So our first close read is going to be on this video. And the purpose for this close read is for you guys just to watch this video and get the gist. So if you look, question number 1 says, what is the gist of the video? That's our purpose. I'm showing you this, and all you have to really get out of this is what's the gist, what's the main idea.
It's been a while, so let's look back at what we know about close reading. The reason we do close reading is to make sure that students get a deeper understanding of the texts they are reading. Before diving into a close read with students, it's helpful to use the 5-step planning process. Let's get started. When you get ready to plan a close read, you always start by choosing your standards first, and then set your purpose. That means being clear about the purpose of the close read with your students. After you've gotten to know which standards you plan to address, you can start choosing your texts. Remember, a text you select for close reading should be compact, short texts that can be read and reread deliberately and slowly to deepen student thinking. What that really means is knowing if you even need to do a close read or if you just need to use some of the strategies of close reading. You've got your standards and text in mind, so now it's time to make sure your text is actually worthy of a close read. A text worthy of a close read will stretch students a bit beyond their independent reading level for comprehension to occur. You can use different tools to determine a text's complexity. Just a hint, it's not all about lexile. Complexity involves looking at several measures. Qualitative measures, like knowledge demands, quantitative measures, like the lexile level, and reader and task considerations, which take into account who your readers are and what you are asking them to do. Remember your purpose when finding the sections of the text that allow students to think deeply. Once you know for sure that your text is worthy of a close read, you have to take the time to dig into the text. As you read the text, think of how you will chunk and annotate it, which text-dependent questions you will ask, as well as how you will engage students in conversation about the text. You do all this so students are able to deepen their understanding of the text and the standards. After reading the text, think about the way your students might think, and plan for those who might need extra support. That includes chunking the text and figuring out how you'll teach students to do that on their own. Identifying vocabulary words students may struggle with and planning how to teach them. Writing scaffolded, text-dependent questions, and figuring out what other scaffolds you might need to make the text accessible for all students. When it's time to teach your close reading lesson, you are guiding students through the process of thinking critically about the text. Keep in mind that your goal is to help make all students strong, independent readers.
So if you guys want to take a minute on your note taker to independently respond to that first question. What was the gist? Why did we show you this video? And as I see everybody finishing up, remember, one of our goals this year through the DPLC process is to get kids talking. So we are going to form triads or partners at your table, and I want you to share with your partner or the 3 people in your group what you wrote for the gist. So go ahead and turn and talk to your group mates. Maybe keep getting started. Okay, guys, should we spot? Sorry to do that, but we all know it, so I'm gonna use it. This question should have given you some confidence. It should have been a question that was pretty simple to read. Does anybody want to share what they got for the gist or what their partner shared? Anybody want to be brave? Go ahead, Miss Harrington. Thank you.
It was how to plan, how to do a close read, the steps.
I agree with Miss Harrington. The point of this video was really planning how to close read, and she said the steps on how to close read. I saw somebody at the first grade table wrote the 5 steps to close reading process. Anything along those lines is the gist. So the second time we experience this close read, you're going to have a new purpose. This time there's sticky notes in your bin, so if you want to use your sticky notes, the purpose of this second close read is to look at the symbols and images that are helping you understand the message. So as you watch this video, you're analyzing the images on the screen, thinking about why would the author include this image. I know that when I was doing this, I needed a sticky note to actually draw the image so I could remember it. The sticky note is for you to take notes as you watch this. So again, we're watching the same video. When we do a close read, we go back to the same text multiple times. So we will watch this video one more time. This time with a very different purpose.
It's been a while, so let's look back at what we know about close reading. The reason we do close reading is to make sure that students get a deeper understanding of the texts they are reading. Before diving into a close read with students, it's helpful to use the 5-step planning process. Let's get started. When you get ready to plan a close read, you always start by choosing your standards first, and then set your purpose. That means being clear about the purpose of the close read with your students. After you've gotten to know which standards you plan to address, you can start choosing your texts. Remember, a text you select for close reading should be compact, short texts that can be read and reread deliberately and slowly to deepen student thinking. What that really means is knowing if you even need to do a close read or if you just need to use some of the strategies of close reading. You've got your standards and text in mind, so now it's time to make sure your text is actually worthy of a close read. A text worthy of a close read will stretch students a bit beyond their independent reading level for comprehension to occur. You can use different tools to determine a text's complexity. Just a hint, it's not all about Lexile. Complexity involves looking at several measures. Qualitative measures, like knowledge demands, quantitative measures, like the Lexile level, and reader and task considerations, which take into account who your readers are and what you are asking them to do. Remember your purpose when finding the sections of the text that allow students to think deeply. Once you know for sure that your text is worthy of a close read, you have to take the time to dig into the text. As you read the text, think of how you will chunk and annotate it, which text-dependent questions you will ask, as well as how you will engage students in conversation about the text. You do all this so students are able to deepen their understanding of the text and the standards. After reading the text, think about the way your students might think, and plan for those who might need extra support. That includes chunking the text and figuring out how you'll teach students to do that on their own. Identifying vocabulary words students may struggle with and planning how to teach them. Writing scaffolded, text-dependent questions, and figuring out what other scaffolds you might need to make the text accessible for all students. When it's time to teach your close reading lesson, you are guiding students through the process of thinking critically about the text. Keep in mind that your goal is to help make all students strong, independent readers.
So, go ahead and take a minute to finish up your ideas on your sticky note and to just take a look at question number 2. For close read 2, the question says, how does the author's choice of images contribute to the understanding of the text? And this time, you're going to use the information on your sticky note, and I want you to share first with your partners, before you go to answer that question, I want you to share what images you selected and why you chose those images. So go ahead and turn and talk to your partners.
So I found that like when you're driving and every time the kids stop, that's what they're doing. Their vocabulary or whatever, and they go a second and comes back to that.
Okay guys, go ahead and wrap up your last thought with your partners. And now I just want you to take about 30 to 45 seconds to go ahead and put your final thoughts on that post-reading note taker. As you do that, I'm going to share two things. Number two, yes. One is that on about 12 sticky notes, I saw a target. And then I would say on about 7 sticky notes, I saw a triangle. What do we think why did the author choose those two images? What purpose did they have? That target and that triangle.
Because of the bullseye? We all know what a bullseye is?
We do. We all know what a bullseye is. We can have a personal connection. So it helps us understand more that the point of this close read is to have that target. We need to get our kids to that target, that purpose.
The triangle is very nice because of the 3 sides. It shows the steps, you know, what comes first, what comes next, what comes last.
Ms. Thomas made a really good connection that I'm going to share when we were at DPLC. When she was talking about the triangle, she said quantitative, qualitative, and the last one down there, and she actually went through the movements. So the author chose those images to help us stick it in our brain. You know, it was much easier to remember those 3 things instead of just reading some dry text about it. He chose that image, or she, so that it would help stick into our brain and we could process it, understand it a little bit better. So, right now we're going to take a brain break. We just did 2 close reads, and I have very simple brain break directions. You just need to stand up and find a partner at your table. I'm going to give you the count of 10 to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, show me spots. Is there anybody who doesn't have a partner? Okay, I'm going to use Wendy Harrington as my guest for the moment. We're going to stand back to back, and we're going to use our 2 hands to hold up a number. So I can't see her number, she can't see my number, I'm just going to hold it up.
Oh, I'm doing it too?
Yep, you got it?
Got it.
The teacher's going to say go. We're going to turn around, and we're going to shout out the other person's number. Whoever does that first gets to win.
7.
Oh. So we're going to try it again. Great job, Wendy. Ready? Go. 6.
Oh, yours?
Great. So you have to shout out the other person's number. You're going to play a few times, and if the person wins, you're going to say, if you're the loser, it happens, you're going to say, wow, you're quick. So go ahead, back to back, start playing. Ready? Go. 4, 7.
It's easier when it's smaller.
Okay, back to back. Ready? And go. 6. On your mark. Make sure you're thinking. Get set. Go. 3. 6. So we're going to come back together in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So there's many reasons we did right then and there. First of all, because I love brain breaks and it gives me a chance to catch my breath as the teacher. It also gives you guys a chance to just relax. Just think about how you're feeling right now. We just spent a few minutes laughing. It didn't take long to give you those directions. There was no prize, there was no nothing. It was just time for us to have a break. Imagine how your kids feel. They just had to think critically for 2 close reads. Nowhere in the close read bylaws does it say you have to do this all at one day, nor does it say you have to do it in one sitting. So always adjust your plans as you see with your scholars. If they need that brain break, throw it in there. And that one is just called fast hands. So sometimes when I do that in my classroom, I'll do a competition. So I'll let them do it with their partner, and then I'll have a table winner. So we'll play like 3 rounds, and then we'll have a class winner. Now, for the third close read, you're going to flip it over, the note taker, and on the back, we have a text. So another aha moment that I had was you can incorporate more than one text. If you use a video, you can use a passage. If you use a text, you can just use an illustration. A close read doesn't have to be the same exact text 3 times, okay? And that was something that we took away new this year, and that's why we wanted to experience it together. So your purpose this time is to read the text and annotate for learning that builds on read 2. What connections do you see between the video you watch and the text in front of you? They call it an infographic. So I'm going to give you guys about 3 minutes to read and annotate. And then if I could bring everybody's attention back here, I have 2 steps up there for you. The first one is to review that question for close read 3, so it's on the other side. And you're going to take about 30 to 45 seconds to respond to close read 3, really focusing on those connections. you've had a few seconds to respond. There's 3 steps up there. You are going to talk with your pairs again, or your triads. You're going to discuss the 3rd question. And as you're discussing, reflect on your answers and go ahead and add any new thoughts that you've learned. So now's your time to go ahead and turn to your pairs, your triads, and go ahead and share your close read 3 answer.
Because what corrections? They both got city. They both gave seduction strategies on the first one. It was the same information, even though it wasn't.
I'm looking around the room like Okay, if I can go ahead and gather you guys back up here. Does anybody want to share a connection that they made between the 2 texts, the infographic and the video?
We wrote that the article really expressed why it's important to go through these 5 steps and what the purpose of it, the research behind it, how it's helpful to your students, and all of that.
So one thing I heard from you is that there's 5 steps in both, and that it backed it up with research and gave kind of like a purpose behind each step. Does anyone else have anything to share? I'm going to pick on Mrs. Stump because she's my teammate, and I thought she made a very valid point. She talked about just the simple organization of it. The fact that the author decided to organize this in 5 specific chunks, and in the video, the author talked in 5 specific chunks. So that was a connection between how the texts were organized. And that was a great point that I really liked that she shared with Mrs. Sanders. So what we just did was we went through a whole close read. We did 3 close reads. We took a brain break in between. We processed and we discussed after each close read. And I know that we're adults, and so with kids it might take a lot longer, but remember, it doesn't have to be all in one sitting, okay? It can be 1 close read for whole group one day, the second the next day, and the third the last day. It can be 2. If you only have time for 2 in your day, plan 2 purposeful close reads of a text. The last thing I'm going to ask you to do before we talk about your homework is go ahead and respond to that last prompt. Any takeaways, anything that you want to implement right away that you learned today, any ahas? Would anyone like to share an aha or a takeaway? Last time I'm going to ask you to share. If not, I'll just pick on people. Yes, I agree with you. I thought, especially in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, FSA has paired text all the time. It would be a great way to sneak in another text. It doesn't have to be long. That infographic was very few sentences. Anyone else? Thanks for sharing this, Hall.
Mine tagged on kind of to hers. Because of my ELLs, that if I did like kind of like a video or something that represents the text they're about to do, at least there's a way that they can still grasp the content, even if the reading part is still challenging.
Yeah, it makes it for very strong connections when you have a visual representation and then you go and explain it in a text. Even your ELL learners can make those connections. So your homework. I did not pick this. The DPLC team agreed to this together. So this would be a great time to introduce our DPLC team. For those of you who are new, we had some new team members come. So we have Miss Halpin, who's on our team for 5th grade. Miss Wyatt is on the team, but she's not here today. Mrs. Swain is on the team. Mrs. Thomas is on the team. And Mrs. DeSantis is on the team. So your homework is to find a close read text that your team can use in the upcoming unit. It doesn't have to be a written passage. It could be a math problem, a science diagram, a piece of art, a piece of music, and you're going to bring that to your PLC on the 9/25. If you need help finding a close read text, you can reach out to any one of your DPLC team members, and we would be happy to help you. Yes. And now I'm going to pass it right on back to Mrs. Swain for the energy buses.